It is the final WPIAL 5A Big East Conference matchup here at Norwin Knights Stadium as the Gateway Gators look to win an outright conference title on the road here in North Huntington, Pennsylvania. As we wish you a pleasant good evening, Adam Gusky, Vince Russo on the call for you. And Vince, as we look in the rearview mirror to last week's victory for the Gateway, or last week's loss, for the Gateway Gators, they had every opportunity to get the victory, but they fell short, turning the ball over in the red zone several times.
Yeah, 3 times to be exact. 2 fumbles late in the game and a turnover on downs in the second half as well. And so you look at a 10-point loss where the defense struggled throughout most of the evening to stop McKeesport. Obviously, the tune of 38 points on the evening, but they still had their moments in that game. And so we talk about last couple of years, the Gators being in situations where we saw body language, not great demeanor from the team in late situations. Everything was there as far as the competitiveness and the lack of quitting in the game, but the execution just wasn't there.
One thing that the Gators were able to execute well was that passing game. Boy, is that hitting on all cylinders as we wrap up the regular season.
Yeah, Birch, another 414 yards last game through a touchdown pass. With one tonight, he'll enter 5th place all-time, 93 touchdowns thrown. He also is just 59 yards shy of 8,000. So those are the personal anecdotes to watch out for number 12 tonight. But again, 414 yards, both Jenkins and Lewis well over 150 yards last week. Lewis, the long touchdown we saw. I mean, they really are clicking, and both of these teams tonight are going to try to move that ball through the air.
I was just going to get to the passing game for the Norwin Knights, very similar to the Gateway Gators with the way they're able to move the ball in that air.
Yeah, Tristan Tavares leads the WPIAL just shy of 2,000 yards tonight. Will likely pass that as long as he stays upright and healthy. Has 3 solid receivers that he can spread the ball to who have had over 20 receptions on the season. Much like the Gators, they have a committee of receivers that they can turn to. And so I think this will be potentially a barn burner as far as scoring tonight. The big thing is Gators defense versus the Knights defense. The Knights in this 4-game losing streak have allowed 44 points per game. Gators defense hasn't been perfect, but we found in a lot of games they've done enough to let that offense for the Gators outpace their opponents.
Well, it's time to send it down to the field as we are nearly set for kickoff in the final 5A Big East Conference matchup between the Gateway Gators and the Norwin Knights. Now, Norwin does have a conference game next week, but the Gators, they're all done with conference after tonight because they will play at home against Central Catholic next Friday night.
That last game of major consequence, and we'll talk a little bit tonight throughout the evening of the playoff implications as the picture really starts to come into formation. But know this, Gators faithful at home, Gators have that championship already wrapped up. They will be the number 1 seed in the Big East, but obviously tonight you'd like to put it to bed to be the outright conference champs, 5-0 by yourself, unblemished, and then just sort of look at next week as a tune-up for the postseason.
And we are underway in North Huntington, PAs. This one will carry down to around the 3-yard line where it's returned by Luke Denny. Denny has a crease down the near sideline, still on his feet into Gators territory, and he will take it all the way for a 95-plus yard kickoff return for a touchdown.
Denny, the go-to target offensively, 27 receptions, 741 yards, 7 touchdowns. So obviously when you have almost 750 yards on 27 receptions, you've got big play capacity written all over you. And right there, Denny putting the Gators on their heels and bringing the home crowd into it right away, just right down the sidelines. You know, Blake Marsh had an opportunity there, couldn't take the angle to get in front of the ball carrier, and Denny, just the impressive speed there to turn on the afterburners and outrun everyone else on the field.
And that's back-to-back weeks with a kickoff return for a touchdown against the Gateway Gators last week. Gateway saw a kickoff return for a touchdown that started to take the wind out of their sails after they had claimed a 14-0 lead against McKeesport. And the Knights strike early here, taking a 7-0 lead in just 14 seconds on that 95-plus yard kickoff return for a touchdown.
That's going to put the Gators on their heels, as we said, to start. But that'll get this offense out here in a hurry. It'll be the first time, you know, barring that we don't see a return from the talented specialists for the Gators on the other end that takes it for a house call, that we'll see Brad Birch and company get out on the field. And so certainly special teams have been at times this season a real positive. And there have been moments over the last few weeks where you've seen some regression and some frustrations from that unit. And that kick return coverage has been been spotty. I mean, as good as it was against Penn Trafford, where they just absolutely hemmed the Warriors in most of that game, these last couple weeks, there's been a few breaks in the dam.
Evan Pfeiffer will kick off for Norwin. 2 Gators back deep to return. We haven't seen the Gators break one. We've seen almost several times, both by Kenny Lewis and by Terrence Cole, but neither have broken one special teams-wise. Both of them have had big offensive touchdowns. And this one rolls all the way down to the 4-yard line where it's scooped up by Terrence Cole. Cole running right. Lost his footing on the turf and will be down at around the 13-yard line. He had a lot of greenery over to that far side. Had one tackler in front of him, tried to make a move on that tackler, and the turf monster got him.
Well, and folks here who haven't maybe been outside much today in western Pennsylvania, it rained a good bit coming into this contest today early in this one, so not surprising to see a player lose some footing there as the rain over the past sort of hour and a half sort of started to clear up a little bit, but it really came down for a while as we were even setting stuff up here at the stadium. And so precarious start for the Gators. You give up the touchdown return, now you start deep in your own territory.
Birch in the shotgun. Option right. Pitch. Reynolds. Cutting it far side. Pushed out of bounds at around the 20-yard line. Involved on the tackle, Aiden Pham.
Really nicely timed pitch here. Birch able to suck that defensive end in and then get it to Reynolds with a lot of greenery in front of him. Jenkins nearly springs him there, but little arm tackle slows up Reynolds so he can get tackled before he gets that first down.
Handoff, Reynolds spinning his way forward. There's a flag down right near the line of scrimmage, so you're going to have to iron this one out.
And it came in late. It wasn't right away in the play. Still might be a hold, but it wasn't anything. Now, the official had his eyes down around where Reynolds was, and it looks like with that motion there from the official, it's going to be a face mask.
Defense. It's a 5-yard penalty from the end of the run. Result, first down.
So that works in the Gators' favor. Reynolds picked up about 2. Tack 5 onto that, and the ball out to the 26 where it's 1st and 10. Birch looks left, throws left. Kenny Lewis had it on his fingertips but couldn't pull it in.
Yeah, that one just a little out of the grasp. It's hard to call that an outright drop, but one Lewis certainly capable of extending and making that grab more times often than not. But that one just slightly overthrown from Birch. And go back to that last play, the face mask on Reynolds. We haven't seen it as much this season, but last season, with his low center of gravity being a little shorter as running back, we saw he drew a lot of those face mask penalties. Not uncommon.
And around, coming this way, it's Jenkins. He's met and brought down, maybe a gain of a yard if they credit him to the 27, but the Knights were all over that one.
Yeah, Isaiah Francis, senior linebacker, reads that the whole way and takes a good angle. Doesn't try to run straight at him, runs right down that 25-yard line as you see there and is able to cut Jenkins off before he's able to really get outside and turn that into a monster gain. Now 3rd and long for the Gators.
Play action. Pressure late. Pass to Lewis, bobbled and will hit the turf incomplete. And the punt unit will have to come on for the Gators.
Take another look here. See that one? A little contact there before that ball got in there. Not sure if it was anything below board, but certainly called it could have gone either way. But another one that Lewis is going to wish that he had back in the bread basket, as Birch put that one where it needed to be. But good defensive play by Luke Denny. And Gators feel a little flat here early. Feels like there's not a ton of energy in this one.
Birch gets this one away, and it's a beauty. Taking a hop and a bounce in favor of the Gators, and will roll all the way down to the 22. No return man back for the Knights. So the Knights are backed up, and we'll see that offense for the first time today.
I want to expand off of what I just said. You know, this is a game where could you classify it as a trap game in the sense that the Gators, they have the conference championship wrapped up. Next week is a game that doesn't have a ton of meeting. You sort of are through the meat of your schedule. You're coming off of a pretty emotional rivalry game, even though it was non-conference, where you had some chances to win towards the end, and you had two teams that really don't like each other. So you wonder, is there a lack of get-up for this one tonight?
Knights in the shotgun. Sidecar to the left-hand side. Run to the left for Tavares. And he'll be pushed to the sideline. Several Gators get involved in that stop over on that far boundary, including Jenkins.
Yeah, good job by Jenkins and Mark Knight, amongst others, getting to the edge of the field there and taking that speed game away from Tavares, who real dual threat quarterback, but certainly has made headlines with his arm. Close to 2,000 yards on the season. We're going to see two quarterbacks that have combined for 3,600 yards and 32 touchdowns on the season.
So the down marker on the far sideline says 4th, but it is 2nd down and 10 as the pass comes near side. Complete. Jake Knight drives his way out across the 30, close to 1st down yardage as Kenny Lewis gets involved on the tackle. Also in on the stop is Jackson Smith, the freshman.
Good zip there on that ball to get that out. That was a throw across considerable length of the field as that last tackle out of bounds was on the far side of the field and throws it all the way back over to Jake Knight, who's able to fall forward, but still just a little short of that line to gain. Handoff,
back running left. Jackson Huss, nowhere to go. The Gators stack him up. Great news, Craig Schultz in there on the stop, and Craig Schultz early in the week didn't look like he was going to be able to play this week, but he's out there starting along that defensive front for the Gators. Also along that defensive front, Jacob Santo, both players that didn't finish the game a week ago.
Yeah, they had a number of injuries last week. Chase Gabriel also a bit banged up after the contest last week, and so really good to see Schultz back out there. You'd hate to see a senior go down at any point, especially when it comes to a non-conference game. You want to make sure he's able to compete in the games that really matter most.
Flag before the snap.
Ball start. Offense, number 7. 5-yard penalty, still 4th down.
Penalty against Norwin goes against Michael Krinkovic.
Let's get Piper in punt formation. Kenny Lewis stands at his 40.
Ball pushed back to the 25 at this point for the Norwin punt unit. Punt away, a beauty. Hop in favor of the Knights. It rolls to the 29. I think it may have had a couple more yards, but the Knights decide to down it. And the Gators will have a reasonably long field to work with.
Yeah, nice punt there, and precarious again for a moment there. That I believe that was Terrence Cole in the vicinity. Need to get a call, a Peter call, as most teams have, to try and get guys out of the way. That one almost hit Cole. If it would have bounced off of him, would have made it a live ball. Would have been able to be recovered by the Knights. So a close call there for the Gators, who are able to avoid the turnovers. We'll see this angle of it. Look at that. Real close to hitting your own guy. That would have been a disaster for the Gators, who were already down a touchdown early.
Birch running right, cutting it back. He's got the 1st down out to the 40-yard line. We'll say he slides to the 40, down at the 39, 10 yards and a Gator 1st down.
Yeah, he was able to pull back and made it look like he was going to pass for just a second, froze the linebackers, and then ran right at him. Just had more speed on that one. Was able to beat them to that 1st down marker and fall forward. Nice play design.
Birch running right again. Lots of greenery in front of him. 1st down yardage to the midfield stripe before he's gang tackled by the Knights. First one there, Luke Denny, also in on the stop, Mason Kugler.
We talked about the billing of these quarterbacks, and they've run it more times than they've thrown it feels like, early in this one. But Birch, a couple real nice carries here to start this one, gets the Gators up toward midfield.
Jenkins, the motion man. Screen to the right. Reynolds breaks free. Close to the first down flag as he's forced out of bounds. First there, Michael Krinkovic.
Reynolds, another strong performance last week, couple touchdowns, has a dozen on the season, leads the Gators for a second straight season. 660 scrimmage yards thus far, and you see there, so good at absorbing contact and continuing to play through it.
Draw handoff to Reynolds. Not enough for the first down, and that'll bring up 3rd and short.
Likely 4-down territory, so maybe take a shot here on 3rd and short, thinking that Norwin might be looking at a short run play, try to get Lewis, Jenkins, or Selby or Harper over the top, and then you believe in what your offense has been able to do, maybe you run another option play or try to find something to get that yard on 4th down if you don't convert.
Gators motion to an empty set. Birch with the QB draw. Cuts it forward for a first down and more. Tripped up from behind at around the 35. He'll get to the 34 before he's tackled by 34, Isaiah Francis.
Birch continuing to make things happen, but with his legs, 416 passing yards last week, but he's got 259 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on the season on the ground, and feels like they've been utilizing that more and more this season. And I feel strongly that having Sid Bryant, who they went run heavy with in those 2 games that Birch was out, really showed this offense that using a design quarterback run can be super effective for them, and it has.
Birch looking left. Heave-hose it, double coverage on Jenkins, the pass short. And that brings up 2nd and 10.
Yeah, that one a little bit of a wobbler. Felt like Birch didn't get all of it, but take a shot on 1st down. You've been able to get chunk yardage. You're in 4-down territory. I like that call there, just execution wasn't there on that one.
2nd and 10 coming up for Gateway.
Handoff to Reynolds. No, Birch kept it. Near side he comes, inside of the 30 where he is spun down. Jake Sinak. Sinkak on the tackle.
I think he might have been high stepping a little here toward the sidelines. He gets that stiff arm. Look at that little high step, a little excitement out of the senior quarterback. He hasn't done that very often. Normally, he's using that arm to sling it downfield. That time, he's using it to ward off a defender. That's awesome.
Birch hitch and go to Kenny Lewis. First down and more as he will be spun down at around the 14-yard line. Tackle on the play by Jake Knight.
Yeah, nice route. Good job by Lewis getting his head around, catching that ball quickly, and then getting his eyes upfield, getting braced for that impact there, and still continues to be, maybe along with Jenkins, just 2 of the hardest guys to bring down on the field. Just are really going to make you work to tackle them.
Option left, Birch keeps it inside of the 5 where it'll be 1st and goal for the Gators at around the 1-yard line.
They're cooking. They've got that energy now that was missing that first drive in the game. They feel like they got that initial punch from Norwin, that return, and then the defense rises, gets a nice stop, they get good field position, and boy, they're taking advantage of it right now.
Handoff Reynolds, dancing to the right. They'll say he is stopped shy of the goal line, inside of the 1 though. So positive yardage for the Gators senior running back.
Reynolds, not a ton of yardage last week, but did get those 2 touchdowns from in close. He's really been their answer when they've had to go to these goal-to-go situations.
Birch on the RPO, pulls it out of the belly of Reynolds and takes it into the end zone for a 1-yard Gator TD.
And on that one, team sells out, thinking Reynolds is going to get it again, and it just parts the seas for Birch, who's able to almost walk into the end zone unscathed. And a nice drive there. Good misdirection, good play action, a good mix of run and pass, and they're all sort of personified with that last play there.
Blake Marsh with the opportunity to tie it up with his PAT. He splits the uprights, and we're tied with 4:10 to play here in the first quarter at 7 apiece. The Gators offense scoring after a opening kickoff return for a touchdown by the Norwin Knights.
And now the defense gets to get back out there and pin their ears back once again. We didn't really see Tavares sling it all too much, but we know that they're going to be looking to try and move this ball quickly. And for the Norwin Knights, that kick return touchdown gives them a bit of juice. It's been a team that started slow and had to come back in a lot of games throughout the season. As you see another look there at that touchdown by Birch. Now, team has fallen behind. They were down 23-7 to Plum before putting together a 23 fourth quarter rally. They had second half comebacks come up short against Woodland Hills and Franklin Regional. They were down 22 at the half to Franklin Regional, scored 15 in the fourth quarter. And so I know one thing that's really been a focus for the Knights on the season and head coach Mike Brown is getting better starts. And special teams wise, they've done that, but offense and defense, tough sledding against these Gators units here early in this one.
Marsh will kick off for Gateway. This one a bouncer. That'll be downed at around the 31-yard line. Sinchak downing that one for Norwin. Decent field position at the 31. And I think it makes sense not to give it to Luke Denny.
Yeah, fool me once, right? So no fooling twice. They decided to just sort of lay this one up so there's no chance of a big return.
Time to take a look at those Big East Conference standings. We've run through them a little bit thus far, and you can see Gateway right now the only ranked team in the entire conference, as they are ranked number 5 in the Trib Live High School Sports Network rankings, not in the Post-Gazette. You see the Gators on the top, just behind them, Franklin Regional and Penn Trafford, but they both have losses to the Gators. Toss to the left-hand side is incomplete. That one, there wasn't really a blue jersey in the vicinity. Quite frankly, the closest player to it was Jackson Smith, the Gators linebacker.
Hey, a little taller, he might have been able to go up and get that one. Errant throw there, and maybe even more errant decision there to try and air that one out when there was really no viable target on that one.
Toss to the left, short hopped, intended for Jackson Pons. So 2 throws back-to-back for Tavares, and neither of them really on the mark.
Yeah, surprising this late in the season to see him off the mark and not in sync with his receivers. He's got a host of guys we've talked about, Pons definitely being one of them that he's going to look at throughout the evening. Both Pons and Jake Knight, along with Luke Denny, all with over 25 catches on the season, all have scored touchdowns throughout the campaign.
Tavares looking left the whole way, tries to elude pressure, cannot do so. Sacked from the backside by Craig Schultz.
So good to see him after that scare he endured last week. He's got the brace on the right leg, but it looked not great, to say the least, for Schultz, and we were all really hoping we'd get to see him again this season, and not only to get to see him play, but come in, get that sack on the second possession, and see him leaving the field fired up. That's incredibly exciting, and now Gators get the ball right back.
Yeah, the punt snap also goes to the hands of the punter Pfeiffer. He's able to gather it back in as it'll be a short punt that'll take a bounce in favor of the Gators and will be down at the 40. So the Gators just 60 yards from pay dirt.
And a chance to take control in this game. You spot Norwin 7 points to start, then you get the offense out there, get in rhythm on your second drive, get some points going. The defense has looked lights out here in its first 2 series, and so you get a chance to build on, an offensive possession where your offense was in a great rhythm, and they really were only on the sidelines long enough to catch their breath to get ready to come back out here. So now it's an opportunity for the Gators to continue to keep the Norwin Knights on their heels with that mix of run and pass and try to take first lead in this one.
Touch on the fact that Chase Gabriel is out of the lineup, the left guard for the Gators, and that means Jacob Santo is going to play both ways, defensive end on defense and left guard on that offensive side. Birch on the straight drop back. Crossing pattern, Lewis, a lot of greenery in front of him. Inside of the 30, cuts it to the far boundary.
We're not going to catch him.
10-5, end zone, touchdown, Kenny Lewis. One play, 60 yards, Gator touchdown.
So now it's the Gators' turn to have that explosive play after the big kick return by Luke Denny. Birch, not a whole lot of air yardage on that one. That's a whole lot of yak on that one as he just sort of slings it out into the flats. Lewis makes the first man miss. You'll see here just a quick little pitch and catch as he comes across the formation underneath. Is able to outrun the linebacker. I don't know whose idea it was to put a linebacker on Kenny Lewis, but that's not going to work. As you see, he's able to make everyone miss on his way to the end zone.
Blake Marsh on for the PAT. This one carrying wide to the right-hand side. And for back-to-back weeks, we see Blake Marsh miss a PAT. No, it didn't seem like the timing was all set between snap, kick, or snap, hold, and kick. As we take another look at this touchdown. You talked about this being mostly yak yards, Vince. There's been a lot of QBs over the years that have buttered their bread with yards after the catch. Tom Brady is the first one that comes to mind, and he is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, there's something to be said about scheming guys open, putting them in positions, having the right guys in place to make those plays, and not over complicating things. I think there's a lot of coaches at a lot of levels of football that overcoach things and overthink things. And with an offense like this and the amount of playmakers you have if you're the Gators, just get the ball to a guy like Lewis in a little bit of open space 5 yards downfield, and look what he can make happen and did just on that play. So Gators out in front for the first time tonight and able to utilize all of their weapons here in the early going on this one, getting the ball into the hands of Jenkins, Reynolds, Lewis, and then Birch calling his own number a few times as well. And also, Adam, that is the touchdown pass, number 94, that puts Brad Birch into 5th place all-time in the WPIAL in passing touchdowns.
Well, that's certainly an impressive feat for the Gateway senior. Another bouncing kick that will be bobbled and picked up this time by Sinchak, and he'll carry it out across the 35 to around the 37 before the Gators are there to stack him up. Mark Knight at the bottom of the pile for the Gators.
You talk about all the things that have to go right. So, you know, if he stays healthy and the Gators are able to maybe even win a postseason game, you talk about the potential for 100 passing touchdowns at the high school level. He stayed healthy other than the 2 games he missed this year and a handful of games in the state playoffs at Jeanette his freshman year. And to be able to have the weapons around him, I mean, just all those factors have had to go right, and they have for Brad Birch.
Tavares throw to the far side, complete. And that's Denny to the far side. Brought down just shy of the first down marker. We've seen how dangerous Denny can be with the ball in his hands as he started the game with a kick return for a TD.
Yeah, quick catch there, and you see him decisive, trying to get out to the edge there. Certainly a lot of speed for number 5. Again, you talk about a guy who's averaging well over 20 yards a catch. He is explosive.
Tavares with trips to the right. Hands off. Running right. Huss. First down and much, much more as he's finally brought down by Jackson Smith inside of Gators territory at the 47.
Well, he got popped at the end of that one. Take a look. A lot of greenery there in front, and then right at the end here, Lewis comes in. Looks like Jackson Smith and Lewis might have got the best of each other there on that one, but way to finish off a really nice run there.
Motion man from left to right is Denny. Tavares, high snap. Looks right, throws right, pass complete. As Denny finds himself in front of Kenny Lewis. About 2 yards shy of the first down marker, so that brings up 2nd down and 2.
Boy, a nice timing pattern there and good throw. Luke Denny, some zip on that one. My goodness, you do not see a lot of high school quarterbacks who are able to put that much oomph on the ball at this level.
Tavares sends trips to the left this time. It's going to hand off to Huss, who's wrapped at the line of scrimmage by Jackson Smith. And the freshman makes sure it's a no-gainer.
I feel like we say this a lot, but you know, there's very few defenses with the athleticism the Gators have where you see these holes. The hole was there. It was a good decision by Tavares to hand that one off, but it's amazing how quickly that those close up. And you got Jair Phillips and Mark Knight and Donovan Biggs firing in there. Those holes close up in a real hurry.
So 3rd and 1 for the Knights. Tavares checks to the sideline. Back settles to the right of Tavares. Toss right, pass complete. First down for Norwin as Jacob Page pulls that one in. Tackle made by Jackson Smith at the 30.
Yeah, take another look, not overthinking it. Zone coverage there, able to just sort of get a few yards downfield, turn around, catch the ball. All you need is 1 yard there. Doesn't have to be flashy. Good job moving the chains for the Knights, who are trying to reclaim the lead in this one. They certainly are not a team that ever goes away quietly into the night. And now as we get close to the end of the first quarter, got the Gators on their heels driving.
Tavares pressured by Jenkins. Tavares runs right. Steps to the sideline where he's met by Kenny Lewis. He has enough for the first down inside the red zone to the 18.
A good decision making there and good job being elusive by Tavares. He's able to make that first man miss and then just takes that greenery in front of him that the defense was giving him, picks up the first down with his legs, and moves the Norwin Knights into the red zone for the first time tonight. Those first points, as we recall, coming from special teams. And so first time tonight we're seeing now in the third possession this offense start to move the ball a little bit against the Gators.
And they'll have the ball inside of the Gators red zone as we start the second quarter. Taking a look, talked about the rankings, and we'll start with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette 5A rankings. Peters Township hitting on all cylinders, 8-0 atop the 5A rankings. Penn Hills number 2, Pine Ridgeland number 3, and the Woodland Hills Wolverines are number 4, and those two teams are meeting at the Wolverina as we speak. Moon is number 5. And looking at the Trib rankings, Peters Township, Penn Hills, Pine Ridgeland, Woodland Hills, those top 4 are all the same, but you substitute the Gateway Gators for the Moon Township Tigers.
The Gators right there in the peripheral. They've played such a difficult non-conference schedule. I think people acknowledge that. But certainly there's some teams with some good records at the top of 5A, but it really feels below Peters Township pretty wide open. And you talk about that game tonight, Adam. Really the game of the week in this side of the state is that Pine Richland Woodland Hills contest. Pine Richland just scored in that one, made it 7-0.
And if it's not the game overall here in Western PA, it's definitely the 5A game of the night, undoubtedly. As Tavares is pressured, tossing to the right-hand side where he completes the pass, and diving into the end zone is Denny for his second TD of the game.
Yeah, absorbed the hit, the nice hesitation, and then just able to extend and dive. And take a look here. Tavares, a good job standing in there. He gets smacked at the end of this one. Gets that ball out right on time. And then Denny able to get away and dive for the end zone there. That was impressive.
I think that was Mark Knight coming in there. Put the wallop on Tavares, but Denny was still able to muscle his way through and catch the football, take it into the end zone. And we're tied right now with the PAT upcoming. And this PAT is up and inside of that right upright. And Norwin has reclaimed the lead, this time by just one, 14-13.
This is a Norwin team. We've talked with some personnel before the game. Mike Brown has been on record in both the Post-Gazette and the Trib talking about how there's been so many moments this season where they've been in games. You know, they have that 2-6 record, but a couple bounces and you know, you're right there, one possession away from Woodland Hills, Franklin Regional. You're sort of nipping at the heels of Penn Trafford well into the third quarter until they started to salt that one away. That score looked a little bit more lopsided than how a lot of people felt that game really was. And so they're certainly building something here, and they have some real talent on the offensive side of the ball. They just haven't been able to put that full 48 minutes together. Mike Brown and those around this program acknowledge that. They're just waiting for that first performance where you see them really put it all together for a full game.
So Kenny Lewis back there, as is Terrence Cole. And let's see what Pfeiffer will do with this kickoff. A bouncer through the legs of an up man. Kenny Lewis off to the races. Still on his feet, 50. Has a blocker in Jenkins to the 20. Still on his feet to the 5, where he's finally brought down. Flags behind the play. This may negate a portion of this return, but still a huge special team spark for Kenny Lewis.
And certainly the downside is a flag comes in. The only upside maybe for the Gators is it came in at the very end of that play when Lewis already down in the red zone, inside the 10-yard line even. So hopefully the Gators still set up with some real nice field position here off of, we talked about the best return of the season thus far.
During the return, block in the back. Returning team. It's a 10-yard penalty for the spot of the foul. First down.
So it looks like they're going to say the spot of the foul was the 15. Seems sort of arbitrary, especially from where the flag came, but nonetheless, the Gators will have the ball at the 25-yard line as we take another look at this beautiful return by Kenny Lewis. Nice job there on the blocks, especially by Jenkins. And then as Kenny Lewis cut it back in, that's where you see the block in the back by Tristan Houston.
Oh, sort of manifested it. We talked about how we haven't seen that signature return from the Gators all season. And granted, that one didn't go the distance, but my goodness, that was by far the best return we've seen this season.
Play action. Setting up the screen, complete. Reynolds cutting it inside. He's got the first down. He's inside the 10, where he's tossed to the far sideline by his jersey. Strong tackle there by Jackson Pons.
Reynolds looked like he's got a little extra step in his game tonight. And talk about early in the season, we sort of had some frustrations with the screen game. They tried to go to Reynolds so frequently that at one point he had 14 catches for 35 yards, an average of 2.5 per. Now, a couple times early in this one, they've been able to hit that for some big yardage after really not going with the running back screen very much frequently recently.
End up spotting the ball at the 10-yard line, so it's first and goal for the Gators at the 10. Play clock's down to less than a full second when Birch finally takes the timeout.
Gateway. First time on the half.
They usually do give you that extra beat after the clock turns to 0 to get the timeout in, and that's exactly what happened in that circumstance with Birch taking that timeout.
We've seen that a few times this season. You know, on one side, you hate with 11:26 left in the first half to burn a timeout here, but with a chance to reclaim the lead here, you want to get everything right. You want to capitalize in a close game.
Gateway Gators looking to get back on the winning track. After winning 4 straight games in conference, they lost last week at home to the McGee-Sport Tigers by 10. A game they had every opportunity to reclaim in half number 2, but every time the Gators got it within 3, the Tigers struck back with that potent running attack. So Gateway looking to go perfect in conference before wrapping up the regular season next week at home against the top team in 6A, the Central Catholic Vikings.
And we have lamented numerous times. An exciting matchup. You know, I'm excited with Spencer Witt next week to finally see the Central Catholic team in person that so many people have talked so glowingly about, and certainly a one-loss team that has really laid the wood on a lot of teams thus far this year, but I just wish it wasn't week 10.
Low snap, Birch is able to corral it. Steps out of pressure, spinning his way forward, still on his feet, driving towards the goal line. And he'll be brought down at the 1.
Boy, that was close. What a nice spinorama. Take another look at this one. Eyes downfield, finally pulls it down, and then right here, whoa! Able to juke 2 guys right out of their cleats, and then just ever so close to punching this one in.
Now Norwin's going to take a timeout because they didn't have the proper personnel on the field on this second and goal. Now initially they spotted the ball at the 1. They've moved it back a little bit. So it's somewhere between the 1 and the 2. It's officially second and goal from the 2 at this point, according to the scoreboard.
I suppose maybe the knee came down a little sooner than maybe we saw, but it looked like Birch was hugging right up against that goal line that it should have been perhaps even inside the 1-yard line. So maybe that knee came down a little sooner than we saw.
While we have this opportunity, I want to thank our crew for getting everything ready for tonight's road broadcast. Obviously, our home games have become second nature, but sometimes with the away games, we have to adjust on the fly, and things certainly weren't easy, as you said, during the setup when we had a driving rainstorm and we had to fly some cables out across the fans and then underneath part of the bleachers out in the driving rain before we got all the cameras finally set up and ready to go. And somehow we were still ready to go about 45 minutes before kickoff.
It's an adventure. They don't call it TV magic for nothing, I tell you what.
Handoff to the motion man, Kenny Lewis. He's retreating, now running forward, and he'll step to around the 2 or maybe the 1. They'll say inside the 1, according to the line judge on the near side. So that'll bring up 3rd and goal, but from inside the 1 this time.
That was close. talked about all season, they really haven't, that's one wrinkle they really haven't adopted into the offense is the jet sweep, which almost really makes you scratch your head with the guys they have out there on the outside.
Birch going to keep it himself, trying to push his way to the right-hand side, and he's stonewalled at the goal line and will not cross that goal line. Trying to push the pile, but the Knights were there to drive him back. Leading the charge, Josh Leonard. So Birch will settle things down. Handoff, Reynolds runs right through a Knight for a Gators TD.
Boy, talk about not being denied. Reynolds saw that linebacker come up in his face and just committed to winning that battle. You'll see here, boom. Those are the drills you're doing during the summer, getting yourself ready for moments like this. And Reynolds just got lower. He has that low center of gravity and picture perfect run from 1 yard out there, and his 13th touchdown of the season.
Jake Knight shaken up on the play. He was the Knight trying to attempt to make a tackle on Jaquan Reynolds to no avail. Hopefully just a shoulder stinger, and he will be able to continue for Norwin as the PAT is up and in for Blake Marsh. And Gateway has claimed a 6-point lead on the Norwin Knights, 20-14.
Back and forth we go. Talked about it both in pregame and even just chatting off the air. Just take another look at that powerful run by Jaquan Reynolds. So this game certainly has the capacity and the fireworks on both sides offensively to be a bit of a barn burner. You know, Norwin's defense giving up 34 per, 44 points a game over this losing streak. The Gators defense has done enough this season, but still giving up about 24, 25 points a game themselves. So not surprising to see 34 points here in just about 14 minutes of action.
So let's see if the Gators defense can right the ship after allowing the Knights to go on a touchdown drive of about 65 yards. It's capped off on that touchdown pass from Tavares to Luke Denny. Like we said, Denny already with 2 touchdowns today, one on a kick return and another on the reception. And this one will carry over the head of Jackson Huss as Denny not back to return that kick that time. And it will be 1st and 10 for the Knights at the 20 after the touchback by Blake Marsh.
Yeah, maybe just giving him a quick break with how much he's played. He's much like Kenny Lewis, a guy who plays just about every snap in the game. You don't see him come out all that often. And that takes quite the toll on any athlete's body, even though they're still young, still in that prime of athletic prowess for the most part, growing into it at least. That's still, we've seen guys like Lewis go down with cramps throughout the season just from the amount that they've had to play throughout the season.
Forward pitch to the motion man coming from right to left. That's Jackson Pons. Picks up a couple. Make it 3 officially out to the 23.
They did a good job there. Not getting super sucked in. Good job by Jackson Smith getting in on that one. And then Mark Knight coming across the field, making a good form tackle, limiting the damage on that one and making it sort of 2nd and long-ish on this one.
Trips to the right. Tavares is going to keep it, and he's hit hard as he decides to cut it up the middle by Donovan Biggs.
Not a lot going there. Knights have a little bit of size down on that line, but this is a unit for the Gators that has gotten better and better as the season has gone on. Those interior linemen getting a better push there on that one. Swallowing up Tavares before he really got anything going.
Methodical offense right now for the Knights as they still have 10 seconds to work with on the play clock. Tavares steps up as he's got greenery in front of him. Hit by Kenny Lewis at around the 35-yard line. And Tavares had just started that slide when Kenny Lewis came in.
You know, it's one of those instances where both things can be true. That's absolutely a penalty, but it's absolutely not a malicious play. Lewis started that motion when the quarterback was still upright. Obviously, the call going to be late hit and 15 yards on top of that run. But, I mean, you take another look. Lewis comes sliding in just as Tavares starts that slide.
And they called it helmet to helmet, so let's take a look at this one. That was a shoulder to a shoulder.
Yeah, I'll say that's somewhat semantics probably. Wrong call, but still an infraction-worthy play there with a hit when a quarterback's giving himself up. That's more of a defenseless receiver kind of play.
Well, semantics are still part of the execution.
For sure.
As the pass is to the right-hand side and is pulled in. Nice job there by Denny to hang on to that one. Out in front of Carlos Diggs.
Yeah, they got a couple guys, not least of which Denny, who's shown already tonight in multiple situations, can make some real combat catches. This is probably the best receiving core the Gators have seen all season outside of the one they normally line up on offense.
Tavares hit as he releases the football. Toss down that far side is incomplete. As he was looking for Denny in one-on-one coverage down that far boundary. And I think the contact to the arm certainly sent that pass awry.
Yeah, contact the arm, but the contact I'm looking at downfield is, that's not a little offensive pass interference. I know that ball was a little outside. Maybe they could call that uncatchable, but Denny pushed off there at the end.
That's the second time we see Mark Knight just a gnat's eyelash away from really making a big play in the backfield of the Knights. Tavares looking looking right, throwing right, and the pass is incomplete. As the intended receiver, Luke Denny, couldn't hang on to that on that far side. And that'll bring up fourth down for the Knights.
And again, the pressure inside forces Tavares to get rid of that one probably a half second sooner than he wanted to, as the Gators have been bringing pressure all night, trying to speed up the clock on Tavares, who a few times has been able to break away and turn that into some running room. We saw the long run down along the sidelines in the last possession that led to the touchdown, and then the one that resulted in the slide and the 15-yard penalty at the end of it. They're going to go for it here.
Yeah, Mike Brown leaves the offense on the field as Tavares will drop back, looks to the right-hand side, and the pass is caught just inside of the 40-yard line. Zach Pauling pulling that one in front of the Gateway Gator in Jair Phillips.
It's good coaching and good execution by the receiver. The number one thing there on those sort of routes is you got to run it long enough to make sure that by the time you catch the ball, you've already got the first down. They run it just far enough there to get that first down and keep this drive along. Moving on.
Tavares, high snap, hands off. Not a whole lot of room for the running back, Sinchak, as he is hauled down to the turf. Roberson Louise June, also on the tackle, Kane Mbendi.
Good to see some of the big guys get in on this one. Normally the ones clearing the way for the linebackers to be able to come in and clean things up easily. That time they're able to get off of their blockers quickly and swallow that one up after a gain of just a few.
Mbendi, one of the two-way linemen, and you're going to see a lot more of that rotation today with the absence of Chase Gabriel. Also, Noodle's not in the game today either, so those are two defensive linemen. One offense, one defense that causes a lot more two-way players. Stepping up Tavares, trying to run to the right. The Gators step up defensively. Jenkins, great read. And the future Bowling Green Falcon makes the play at the 41.
Yeah, good job reading that one. Just knifing up quickly. Mark Knight also in the vicinity there. And Mark Knight came up, I don't know if it was an equipment type thing. It looks like Knight's getting tended to on the far side of the sidelines. Was sort of grabbing up towards his head. Hopefully just a stinger or, again, something pinched just a little bit. Hopefully not any sort of concussion issues or anything like that. Mark Knight, boys, he had an extra gear tonight. He's been excellent.
3rd and a dozen right now for the Norwin Knights with the ball at the 41. Check to the sideline with plenty of time on the play clock for Norwin. And now a timeout is taken by Coach Brown and the host Norwin Knights.
Reminder coming up halftime.
So Vince, as we take a look at this football game, touch on the fact that we've got the Norwin Knights, we've got on the Gateway side Mark Knight, and on the Norwin side we've got Jake Knight. Does that make it a three-dog night?
Well, the game's being played at night. I don't know if that one applies. Different kind of night, but yeah, it is an uncanny coincidence, convergence of nights. Speaking
of the Norwin Knights, they've got their big conference game coming up next Friday night against the Hempfield Spartans. That their rival here in Westmoreland County. Take a look at their schedule. Started off with a couple of losses, then won a couple of games on the road at Fox Chapel, and at home their lone conference win against the Plum Mustangs before losing at Woodland Hills, and then several conference games in a row.
They hung around in a number of those games, just couldn't put together a full enough effort, especially defensively, to get it done.
3rd and a dozen after the timeout. The snap goes awry. Tavares has to curl out to the far side at the numbers to fall on top of it, and that brings up 4th and very long now for Norwin. It's about 4th and 19, depending on the spot, and the full punt unit will come on.
Yeah, circumstantially, if this was a 4th and short, just inside of midfield, you maybe think about, if you're Mike Brown, going for it, but the fact that you'd have to get the ball so far downfield, you'd rather just try and pin the Gators deep here and live to try and keep this a one-possession game.
Punt away. Let's see if Kenny Lewis can do something with it as he catches it at the 11. Slides through tackles. Across the 30. He's got room. To the 50. Still on his feet. 40. Don't touch anybody, Gateway. 20, 15, 10, 5, end zone, touchdown.
There it is. Lewis twice now in this game. Got super close the last time, and now this time has that signature return for the Gators this season as they're able to part the seas right down the middle of the field, and Lewis weaving his way back and forth across the field all the way to the end zone for what was a long punt return touchdown and an opportunity to really break this game open.
Marsh to attempt the PAT, stretch the Gators lead to 13 if he is able to split the uprights on this one. And that one is good. And Gateway on top, 27-14 with a big special teams play. Now we have an opportunity to look at this one, Vince. Caught it at the 11, found a crease, and off to the races he went. We've got to give the Gators credit because there was an opportunity for perhaps a block in the back on the far side around the 20-yard line. As this play continues, we'll see it.
You see even there just holding up ever so slightly, number 22 for the Gators, TJ Mitchell. Thought about it, started to push the hands out, kind of like a check swing in baseball, pulled him back quickly before he could knock over that Norwin Knight. A lot of times when those plays break down, things are helter-skelter on special teams. You got a guy like Lewis who's weaving one direction, then cuts on a dime and is going back the other direction. It's easy to do that. It's easy to commit the crackback blocks that, back when both of us played high school football was still a legal thing to do, but now that gets penalized as well. So good job by the Gators keeping all of that cerebrally in mind and not committing any penalties.
And a really good job by S.J. Moorfield as the ball was going down that left side. He did have one Knight in front of him. He reached out with the left hand. He kind of put the left hand in between Kenny Lewis and the potential tackler. No block in the back, just that left hand out in front, just enough to give Lewis the last bit of room for the Gator TD. As Blake Marsh's kick will be short, and it's scooped up by Jackson Huss, and Huss will be met and brought down as he crosses the 20 to the 22 by Carlos Diggs.
That kick return unit or kick coverage unit for the Gators has really closed things up after that long touchdown return from Luke Denny. You see a nice job by Marsh, sort of popping that one up, sort of using the pitching wedge, so to speak. Got some loft on that one, and sure, you don't get it down the field quite as far, but by the time the return man got under it, didn't have a whole lot of room to go, and already had guys bearing down on him, including Carlos Diggs.
5 minutes, 4 seconds remain here in the second quarter. Tavares in the Knights offense with a long field to deal with. Sinchak, the sidecar to his right. Toss to the right. And well picked up by S.J. Moorfield. Slid past the blocker and made the open field tackle as the pass was complete to Pauling, about 2 yards in the backfield. Great read, great execution by S.J.
That's another time that Tavares and company have set up that screen going across the far side of the field, having to throw that ball out far and quick. It takes a long time for that ball to get through the air. DB is able to get there and make a sound tackle.
Tavares, late pressure, slides out of it, tosses it down the field, and the pass to the far sideline is incomplete. The intended receiver, Pons, coverage on the play by J.R. Phillips.
My goodness, I mean, what an effort by Tavares. It looked like he was going to get swallowed up by this massive humanity as he stepped forward in the pocket here. Somehow is able to slip away. So elusive, and you almost kind of hope that they came down with that one in bounds because it was just such an effort by Tavares on that one. But Gators catch a break and good defensive awareness by the DB to make sure the receiver was out of bounds by the time he caught it.
Tavares with time. Pass to the near side is incomplete. Intended receiver Pons, but too strong for him. And J.R. Phillips felt if he would have made a little bit better read on that one, may have been able to come up with it.
Yeah, that ball came out quick, and Phillips, by the time he got his head around, didn't really have a play on it, but my goodness, a lot of zip on that one, a miscommunication, and a big one, a costly one on third down, because now give it right back to Kenny Lewis and company. He's still in the zone from that last return touchdown.
High punt snap, but it's pulled in and kicked away by Pfeiffer. 2 bounces, and Lewis scoops it. Nice open field tackle. Strong grip and a stop for Josh Leonard.
Yeah, good job there. Lewis gets away from that one. He's likely, if not all the way to pay dirt, off to the races again. And so Leonard getting in front of that one, wrapping up Lewis low. But still, the Gators going to have great field position to start around their own 40-yard line. Still plenty of time to put together a long, methodical drive. You can go run and pass here. They have kept those 2 timeouts. They had to burn the one on the way down to the end zone. But still a couple in the hopper and a lot of time to work with.
Birch gathers in the low snap. Crossing pattern intended for Lewis. Looked like Denny got there a little bit early, but no flag.
He certainly did. Take another look across the bottom of your screen here. And Denny sort of draped all over Lewis there. And they've let him play tonight. We've seen very few penalty flags on either team. Mostly a clean game overall. But it did look like Denny got a little physical on that one.
Second and 10 as the play clock down to 10. Birch tossing left. He and Kenny Lewis not on the same page. Late contact and pressure on Birch. And that incomplete pass stops the clock, brings up 3rd and 10.
And not a whole lot going on in the downfield passing game thus far in this one. That long touchdown, as we saw early in the game, getting the ball to Kenny Lewis, that was just a quick crossing route across the middle of the field, was able to get it about 5 to 8 yards downfield into Lewis's hands, who did the rest of the work on that 60-yard connection. No real deep ball connections yet for the Gators, nothing downfield.
Birch crossing. Jenkins, good open field tackle. Sinchak makes that stop, and if Jenkins gets out of that one, he's definitely got the first down.
Yeah, you do not see that very often. I mean, Jenkins, for all the attributes he brings to the table, and we talked about him going to play in the MAC, which is certainly no slouch when it comes to Division I football and the talent that conference has put out into the professional leagues. And Jenkins, he's so physical and so strong on both sides of the ball. He is very, very hard to bring down. So an incredibly strong open field tackle by Sinchak.
So the Gators going to run a QB draw here. Can Birch get the first down? He dives across the 50-yard line, and it's a Gators first down. Gutsy play on 4th and 8.
Yeah, in your own territory, up 2 scores with all the momentum. That's one of those plays where You convert on it, you look like a genius. You don't, you sort of have to wear that egg on your face. And Brad Birch has been just picking apart this Norwin Knights defense when it comes to calling his own number and running with the ball in his hands. He's been excellent thus far tonight.
Birch, deep pass down the far side, one-on-one coverage, and it is through the hands of Selby down that far boundary.
Yeah, he wants that one back. That one was a perfect ball by Birch, and Selby had that little separation over the DB, just unable to come down with that one. Let's take another look, see how closely we can see. Yeah, right through the hands. Must have hit the ground there at the end. We didn't get to see him as his body turned, but a great job by our camera crew catching that one all the way down the field.
Crossing route. And a nice job by Denny to read it and make the play 2 yards deep in the backfield as Kenny Lewis pulled that one in. And that brings up 3rd down and about a dozen. As the line of scrimmage originally was the 49, now the ball is set at the 49 and the line to gain is the 39-ish.
And credit to the Knights, they have adjusted and they've come around. They've been waiting on those routes that the Gators have hit on early in this one, those little dink and dunk crossing routes. They've sort of taken that away.
Birch hesitates, now hit, wrapped, and sacked. There's a flag back at the 40-yard line, thrown in the general vicinity of Kenny Lewis.
You got to wonder, a lot of times that's a defensive holding call unless there was offensive pass interference.
Don't you need a pass for pass interference?
That's a good question.
Holding, defense, number 21. That's a 10-yard penalty from the previous spot. Still 3rd down.
So it'll be 3rd down and 2 after that hold. As the Knights were grabbing a hold of Kenny Lewis right around the 41.
Oh, that makes it 4-down territory as well.
Providing you don't give up a sack like the Gators just did on that previous play.
Now you got me thinking, if a receiver runs downfield and blatantly pushes off, but there's no pass throw, it's like it's a tree fall in the forest, no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound.
Option right, pitch. Reynolds, 1st down and more as he runs through a tackler and is brought down at the 35.
Boy, did he lay the lumber on that one. Reynolds looking like a man possessed tonight as he took it straight at Jackson Huss, running back on running back, and just won that battle, bowled over him, and got a few extra yards to finish off. Big time run to get a big time 1st down.
You saw him run through Jake Knight for a touchdown earlier in this 2nd quarter. This time he runs through Jackson Husk. Gators allowing the clock to tick. Birch tossing to that far side. Too strong for Reynolds. Reynolds shorted the route. I think Birch anticipated Reynolds continuing to run down on that corner route.
Yeah, if he hits him probably about right here, he gets Reynolds in space. Obviously, Reynolds doesn't have his head turned around. Might have been more of a timing route, but yeah, definitely a miscommunication between those two. You live to fight for another down, stops the clock with 60 ticks left, gives you a chance to sort of recalibrate here.
Play action. Toss. Reynolds. Flag comes in back behind the play as Jaquan Reynolds picks up the 1st down to the 20. Got to assume with where that flag came from, it could be a hold because it came from the umpire.
Could be a hold, could be roughing the passer. There was certainly some physicality at the end of that one. They're moving back.
Number 74. 10-yard penalty for the previous spot. Replay 2nd down.
Santo the guilty party. Ball will be placed at the 45.
2nd and about 20 coming up for Gateway.
Good to see a 10-yard penalty for holding.
50 seconds remaining in the half.
It's amazing that that hasn't always been the case this year.
Low snap, Birch pressured, spins out of it. now steps up into the pocket. Uh-oh, he's got room now. Oh, and he's hit hard. Trailing the play and coming up, Jackson Pons makes the stop at the 49.
My goodness, doesn't that change the complexion of this drive? The holding penalty and then Birch getting walloped in the backfield. Now Norwin's going to take the timeout now, hoping to try and get the ball back potentially with a chance to score here. As you see this one, broken play from the start with that bad snap, and then you hate to see your quarterback get smacked like that out in open space. So now you go from chugging along and looking to try and put some points up yourself. Third and a country mile now, back toward midfield.
But of course, this Gateway Gators offense so potent that it's not unheard of to pick up a first down or even score in a situation like this.
Well, they've been able to take the lid off of just about every defense they've come into contact tonight. They haven't hit on that deep ball just yet tonight. Selby let that one slip through his grasp, had a step on the DB. Birch put it on the money, but it's also still 4-down territory if you pick up a chunk here. 3rd and 24. Let's say you get about half of that. You get yourself back into your opponent's territory. Not a lot of time left. I think you regroup, call timeout, and try to go for it. So you don't need all 24 here, but certainly it would behoove you if you did to try and get a few more points before the half.
So Don Hull digs into his playbook and says, what's the right play for 3rd and 24? The good news it's 3rd and 24 from midfield as Birch sends Lewis in motion. Fakes the pitch to Jenkins, tosses it down the far side, looking for Selby, and the pass too strong for Selby, and that'll bring up 4th down and 24.
29 seconds left. Do you gamble with giving them the ball back around midfield? See that one just a little too much on it for Selby, who again had a little bit of separation there, but it looked like Selby hung up a little bit towards the end of that route. If he keeps running through that one, as he kind of changed my opinion watching the replay there. I think if Selby keeps running, he gets under that one. That's on number 7 on that one.
Let's see if Birch punts or if they will go for it here. And Malik Anderson, false start, the right tackle, 6'3" sophomore.
Well, the way these last few plays have gone, you kind of hope they punt it away here. You got a 2-score lead. You've done a lot of things well in this first half. After that opening kick return, you've outscored Norwin 27-7 and really dominated all 3 facets of the game. So I don't know. 4th and 29, I think I just live to punt this one away and try to prevent a touchdown in the last 20 seconds.
That's exactly what Birch does. And Vince, you talked about it last week. Birch seems to punt it better when he takes that long shotgun snap as opposed to the traditional punt snap.
Yeah.
That's what he did there. Boots into it, and it'll settle at the 20.
Yeah, they gave up 3 points towards the end of the half against McKeesport last week. Had that traditional punt formation and was arguably the worst punt we saw all season out of Brad Birch. And there again, I think the less time he has to think about it and the quicker he just sort of swings that leg, he's able to really give it a ride. And now a long field and just 1 timeout. As long as you can keep anyone from getting behind you, the Gators have a good shot of going into the locker room here with a 2-score lead.
Tavares in an empty set. 2 to the short side left. 3 on that wide side right. Seen the Gateway secondary play very well after that 1 touchdown drive for the Knights. Tavares hesitates, then tosses to the near side into the Knights bench. He and intended receiver Srnkovic not on the same page.
And certainly a lot of credit to this defensive secondary for the Gators, but equal credit to the front 7 for the amount of pressure that they have brought. Tavares sacked a few times, pressured on a number of other plays, has had to show some great elusive ability to try and get downfield or even just keep his eyes open for his receivers downfield. Been good pressure all night.
Toss to the right-hand side as there was lots of pressure heading towards Tavares. I think they were trying to set up a screen to Sinchak, but not very well executed by the Knights. And that brings up 3rd and 10.
I wonder, no timeouts left unless you're trying to just take one big shot here at the end, you almost just sort of hand it off and lick your wounds and go into the locker room. Because again, you got a secondary here for the Gators. It's those two safeties deep, going to be certainly not trying to let anything behind them, but also going to be pinning their ears back, trying to play ball hawk, take this one away. And these guys, elusive in the open field, they can take it back to the house.
Tavares looks right, throws right, pass complete to the far side. Denny spun to the boundary with 2 seconds. Boy, there's that hometown clock.
Oh yeah, it looked like Denny might have touched down in bounds before. Take a little look here. Hard to say. They'll give the Knights a little break here, give them one last gasp, try and push this ball downfield, see if they try any trickeration or any laterals, any things like that.
More than anything, looked like the clock started late and ended early. As the Knights will motion to an empty set. Tavares with quads to the left. He'll look right instead. Going deep for Denny. Incomplete. That'll do it for the half. Gateway taking a 13-point lead into the locker room. It's 27-14. Good to have you along with us here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. And Vince, big play for the Norwin Knights to get things started on the kickoff return for a touchdown. Gateway answered right back. And it went back and forth a little bit, but it seems like Gateway has seized the momentum.
Yeah, they really settled in. I thought there was a little bit of lack of energy at the start of this one. It's cold and rainy night. You've wrapped up the section. Might be hard to think about things to get up for, although, as we've talked about, they're 24 minutes away now from being undisputed 5-0 section champs all on their own, and so they're ever closer to that after a strong end of the first quarter, start to the second quarter, where they put points up in bunches. Kenny Lewis, really the star of the first half. The long punt return touchdown a little bit before that, the 60-yard, where about 50 to 55 yards of that came after the catch, and he really made everyone miss along the way. He's been dynamic, and that defense has really rallied after a sloppy start as well.
Talked about a sluggish start for the Gateway Gators, maybe a little bit of a hard time getting things started for them. But the motivation has to be there, mostly because as you look forward a couple of weeks, that playoff committee has got to see those 5A wins in conference.
Absolutely, and you talked about the potential of them to go 5-0 in conference, out of 5 out of conference. They'll have a chance to pad that resume next week against Central Catholic, although we don't want to look too far ahead in a close game still here at this point. But even in their losses, they've played quality teams, played them well. Hopefully the committee takes into account you had 2 games with Sid Bryant behind center, who played serviceably, but it's not Brad Birch, and especially not this year's Brad Birch, who really looks like one of the absolute best players in the WPIAL this season.
Well, we're going to step away here at halftime, enjoy the halftime festivities here at Norwin Knights Stadium. We'll return to get you set for the second half. For my broadcast partner, Vince Russo, I'm Adam Gusky. You're watching GatewayGatorProductions.com. Set for half number 2 here at Norwin Knights Stadium. Adam Gusky, Vince Russo on the call for you here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. Your halftime score, Gateway 27, Norwin 14, as the Gators look to remain perfect in conference play and wrap up a conference title outright.
Yeah, and through 24 minutes of play, they've done just about everything right. Norwin has had a few punches in between, but in this fight between, well, maybe not two heavyweights, but one team in the Gateway Gators that's that much closer to an undefeated conference title. They've done a lot of things well tonight in a game that might have been hard to get up for at first, with it being cold, dreary, and you've got a playoff spot secured, but credit to them, they've come out, they've set the tone, and overall, the playmakers, especially Kenny Lewis and Jaquan Reynolds, have shown incredibly bright outside of Brad Birch, who's done more running the ball tonight in this weather than he has passing the ball.
Talked about a cold and rainy night. Well, that rain has started again here at halftime, and that may play a big part in the way these two teams call the second half.
Yeah, and that behooves the Gators. That works well for them. The more they can take the air out of the game, get the ball into Reynolds' hands and try and run this one, or even maybe try that jet sweep a time or two again. That's the first time we've seen them really go to that this season. They got the ball into Kenny Lewis's hands. Maybe try that end around with Steve Jenkins. But the more you can run the ground game effectively, the shorter this game gets and the closer you get to that 5-0 mark.
Gateway will get the football to start half number 2, and we will take it down to the field for that second half kickoff, as the Gators will send Kenny Lewis back deep to return alongside of Terrence Cole. Second half underway. Donovan Biggs on the return for Gateway to the near sideline, out across the 35, where he is met and brought down by Jackson Huss. Huss, who paid the price on a tackle in half number 1.
Yeah, as a lot of folks did on that Norwin defense, with Jaquan Reynolds having the ball in his hands. We've talked about a few times in that first half, that carry at the goal line in which he just sent Jake Knight backpedaling into the end zone. What an incredible first half from Reynolds, who continues his special season. Over 700 scrimmage yards at this point, 13 touchdowns. Really an unsung hero for this Gators offense that is centered around the pass game at a lot of its highest moments, but can't discount the way Reynolds has played inside the red zone carrying the football.
Handoff, Reynolds running left, slides through a tackle, pushes the pile, gets a little help from his friends too as he takes it out to the 40.
Yeah, productive first down run there. Get a chunk of about 5 yards, keep yourself on schedule, and start by setting the tone here in the second half that you're hopefully going to be able to come out, run the ball effectively, and as we talked about, just keep this clock moving in a game which you're up 2 scores.
Handoff, up the gut, it's Reynolds. He's got the first down and more inside of Knights territory, where he's finally brought down by his number mate, Jackson Palms.
It'll be interesting to see if the Gators can keep this up. It'd be the first time this season that we really see them completely take the air out of the ball and go with a real run-heavy approach. They have not done that thus far this season.
Birch looking left, throwing left. The pass too strong to that far boundary, looking for S.J. Moorfield.
Yeah, that time that one just sailed a little bit. Birch, good grip on that one. You have to wonder if that weather down there, which seems like it's slowed up. I don't think it's raining right this second. Not hard, at least, as I'm looking at the lights. You can see a little drizzle coming down, but not nearly as much as the poor folks that were out there for the homecoming court. They got absolutely dumped on.
Jenkins, the motion man. Play action. Throwbacks. Screen. Reynolds still on his feet. He's gone. 10-5, end zone, touchdown, Gateway.
That seems to be the recipe for success tonight. They've been able to get that screen game going. That third time is a charm. Reynolds, 3 big receptions. That one able to take that to the house. But we talked about earlier, Kenny Lewis's touchdown was a 60-yarder, where about 50 to 55 yards of it were picked up after the catch, and a nice effort by Birch there. Leaves his feet and is able to just sort of will that one into the hands of Jaquan Reynolds. Gets a few clutch blocks down the field, and from there, smooth sailing for number 2 to the end zone.
Kick up and is good for Blake Marsh, and that stretches the Gateway lead to 34-14, 20-point advantage for the visiting Gators, as it is literally raining on the homecoming parade for the Norwin Knights, and the Gators are raining on the parade as well. A lot of yak yards today for Gateway. Kenny Lewis with a big yak TD, and this one on the screen pass to Jaquan Reynolds.
Yeah, 111 yards just in passing touchdown yardage for Brad Birch tonight, who's having himself another impressive evening with 2 touchdown passes, now sitting at 95 on the season. Or not on the season. My goodness, wouldn't that be a heck of a campaign? 95 in his career. He tries to chase that century mark before he hangs up the pads and goes off to the next level.
And with that touchdown pass, that means he's all alone in 5th place all time in WPIAL touchdown pass history.
And really a remarkable career, and still put up massive numbers last year in a campaign that felt like a bit of a step back after how well he played as the sophomore, but has really taken that full circle this year as a senior. Now 16 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions.
Low kick scooped up by the Knights and out to the 40. The return man will go. Cernkovic on the return. Like I said, brought down at the 40. Several blue jerseys there, including Mark Knight, who has returned to the lineup. Good news for the Gators, the gloveless one. That's certainly something you don't see from linebackers that often. No gloves at all.
Just an old school downhill running back who's going to come at you more often than not on the blitz, and great in stopping the run, a great run stuffer for this Gators defense, and just flies around the field. He's been excellent all season long at a position where they've needed it with Remy Bose out.
Tavares looking to the near side, left pass complete. Pons brought down as he crosses the 45 to the 47. Mark Knight with the tackle for Gateway.
This feels like a drive for the Knights. If you want to stick around in this one, you're going to have to come away with 6 here. The Gators came out, took care of business, built that lead up to 20 points. Putting the Knights on their heels after they were able to move the ball in spurts, but more often than not, that pressure in the backfield from the Gators has made life hard for Tavares.
Tavares looking left, throwing left, pass complete to Denny. He's got the first down. Tackle made on the spot by Jackson Smith.
Incredibly athletic play by Denny to contort his body and come back to that ball that was thrown behind him. Not a great throw by Tavares, but Denny able to make the adjustment. We've seen him, obviously the long kick return touchdown tonight, but scored the other touchdown on a nice reception where he was able to juke out of the shoes of a Gator and then dive across the pylon. He has been incredibly athletic all over the field tonight.
Tavares looking left, steps into one, and it is intercepted by Donovan Biggs. He just steps in front of the intended receiver, Jackson Pons, and the Gators take it away.
Good read. That's the 6th interception on the season. Pons came in to this game just under that 2,000-yard threshold, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's a 6th one there as Biggs. A great read indeed, able to step right in front of the intended receiver, Pons, take that one away. And all of a sudden, back out on the field goes that Gators offense to start to tip the scales of this one towards a place where get closer and closer to a running clock and closer to the Gators being able to call themselves undefeated conference champions. Still a ways to go, though.
Birch, option left. Pitches, great time pitch. Reynolds out across the 45 as he wiggles to the 46. Tackle by Huss, also in on the stop, Denny.
Yeah, he's had a few of those tonight where it seems like, how did he get rid of that at the last moment? You see, he gets hit, then pitches it, which is so incredibly hard to do, to maintain that focus while absorbing that hit. Gets it into Reynolds right in that breadbasket area around the number. And then Reynolds just able to turn on the Jets, get close to a first down.
Nothing doing this time as the Gators go to the ground for Reynolds. Brought down for a 2-yard loss. Aiden Pham gets involved in the tackle. First one there was Josh Leonard.
I'd like to see the Gators come away with some points here off of the turnover. Those are always real backbreakers. But if nothing else, you're keeping that Norwin Knights offense off the field the longer that you have this ball and just continuing to let that clock continue to roll as the Gators in no rush to hike this one.
Option left to the short side. Pitch, Reynolds, first down. Still on his feet into Knights territory, and he's finally brought down at around the 46-yard line by Isaiah Francis.
And certainly there's still a long way to go in this one, but you know, you like seeing him staying in bounds. You like to see him not go out, absorb the contact, get down in bounds, and just the shorter this game is, the less opportunities that a pass-happy offense in the Knights with this inclement weather coming in just makes it that much more likely you come out of here with a win.
Birch looking left the hallway, going to throw it left to S.J. Moorfield. He'll adjust and it slides through his hands, incomplete. Wet ball situation there. S.J. couldn't pull it in. Incomplete pass stops the clock and brings up second down 10.
I'll tell you what, though, certainly gets a little more wet on that flight path out to the receiver, but that was a wet ball for Birch, too, and he put that one right where it needed to be, and that's the second time tonight that a receiver downfield has let him down. Two real nice balls that just got through the breadbasket on that one.
Notice here in the second half on that left side, the receiver has been S.J. Moorfield, not Derek Selby. It's Gateway play action, toss to the right. Jenkins inside of the 45 and then driven back by Jackson Pons.
What a showing of strength there by Pons. I mean, again, we talk about Jenkins and how infrequently the first person brings him down. And Pons just runs right through Jenkins and brings him down to the turf. Really, really nice play by Pons on that one to limit that one to a very marginal gain on second down.
Motion man Jenkins, right to left. Handoff Reynolds. Gaping hole. Reaches out and picks up the Gators' first down at the 36-yard line.
Yeah, got just enough with that last sort of gasp effort. He'll get tripped up right around the 37 there and dive right inside of the 36, what they needed there for that first down. I don't know that Norwin was expecting the run there on third and medium. That little draw play caught them off guard, and by the time Reynolds had bursted through the hole, he was right around that line to gain.
Toss near side right, complete. Harper inside of the 30, brought down at around the 29. Decent pickup there. About 7 brings up second and 3.
Yeah, just taking what the defense gives you. There's a couple players slow to get up here.
Jacob Santo, the Gator, slow to get to his feet. He left the game with an injury last week. It was good to see him return to the lineup just on the offensive side a week ago, playing both ways tonight for Gateway. Next up for Gateway, we already talked about it. Central Catholic next week. One blemish on their record is the Pine Richland Rams, who were in the 5A game of the night in WPIAL down at the Wolverina.
Hadn't been much of a game. That one at the half, 21-0, Pine Richland. They've kept the Wolverines, that offense, explosive offense we saw at the Wolverina when we went there for the Gators versus the Wolverines. Just 39 yards for Cam Walter, Scoop Smith and company on the other side. Pine Richland just running it down their throats. And, you know, far be it from this time of year, a Pine Richland team that starts out with a few losses out of conference to some tough teams to start building that momentum. They are so good late in the season. We talked last week about John Ladon and the consistency he's been able to continue at a program that's been good for quite some time. And, you know, I really think that Pine Richland and obviously Peters Township, who's run roughshod through their schedule thus far, and those are two teams that are going to be real tough to beat in 5A once we get into the playoffs.
53 degrees, light rain here in North Huntington, Pennsylvania. Sun set about a half hour before kickoff. And you touched on John Ladon, the head coach of the Pine Richland Rams. He, an alumnus of Robert Morris University, just like you and I, and congratulations to him. He's headed to the RMU Athletics Hall of Fame coming up in early December.
Good on him. Certainly had a storied career as a Colonial in that program, but has gone on to do so much for football in Western Pennsylvania. Very much a deserving honor.
A lot of trickery as the handoff goes to Reynolds. He'll turn the corner inside of the 20 to the 15, where he is brought down in the red zone at the 14.
Just able to turn on the jets there. There was nothing going up the gut with the way that play was designed, so he just skirts down the line and is able to outrun the speedster himself for Norwin, Luke Denny. Sets the Gators back up in the red zone, where coincidentally Reynolds has made most of his hay this season.
Birch is going to keep it, running to the right. Picks up a couple before being brought down. Stop on the play by Isaiah Francis. Gain of about 1 brings up second and 9.
Yeah, really the first time tonight that design quarterback run hasn't resulted in a huge hole and a huge gain. But steady as it goes. Mistake-free football by the Gators thus far, taking care of the ball. It's the name of the game with yourself up 3 scores here.
Jenkins will motion his way back, be the blocker out in front of Reynolds. Springs Reynolds free, and he will be spun down inside of the 10 at around the 9 or 8 yard line. Not enough for the first down, but makes it 3rd and medium.
Yeah, and what is certainly 4 down territory certainly makes it less stressful to have to pick up those big chunks of yardage. And certainly just trying to play safe with the ball here, throw it to areas where you're not going to get it intercepted. Take good care of the ball here down in the red zone, up 3 scores with time dwindling away in the 3rd quarter. See if they go with I thought they might go with a draw. They're going to flex Reynolds out.
And Birch is going to dance his way forward. Now met and brought down. Actually a loss of about 2 on the play, maybe 3 back to the 13. Clock continues to wind. That brings up 4th and 8 for Gateway.
Looks like they're going to keep the offense out there. I was thinking with that ball in the very middle of the field. I know the conditions aren't great tonight, but you thought maybe they bring Blake Marsh and company out, but you're up 3 scores. Might as well keep that offense out on the field. Trying to push this lead even further.
Plenty of time on the play clock, still 10 seconds to go, but Don Hall may actually let the whole play clock go down and then take a timeout with 1 second and think more about this one. And that's exactly what happened. So stoppage on the field after the Gateway timeout, their first of the second half. Well, Vince, the Gators playing here at Norwin Knights Stadium. And they hope to be back here 4 weeks and 1 day from today for the WPIAL 5A Championships.
We talked about that. 5A a little more open this year than I think people were expecting. We'll take a look at the Allegheny 6 in particular that has Peters Township atop there. Moon taking on Upper St. Clair tonight in a game of 2 teams that are really grappling for position. Moon with a win solidifies their spot, their foothold. Upper St. Clair really playing for their lives tonight. That game was 14-all at the half. Bethel Park was up 21-9 over South Fayette. Another game with that same sort of juxtaposition where South Fayette kind of playing for their playoff lives. Bethel Park certainly would suit themselves well to move to 3-1 overall, but you see a lot of parity in 5A. 8-0, and then same as in the Big East. You see 4-4, 3-5. Your 6-2 team is 3rd, 4th in the conference, much like Franklin Regional being 3rd right now in the conference at 6-2 as well. There's really been not a whole lot of teams that have set themselves apart, other than, as I think, Pine Richland, Peters Township, and maybe you could stake that claim for Penn Hills. They have the 1 blemish against Moon. It looks like a team that's really turning the corner at the right time, but there's a lot of teams that have looked beatable throughout the season.
Fake forward pitch. Birch tosses complete. Jenkins met at the 10 and brought down. That'll be a turnover on downs. It'll be Knights ball at the 10-yard line.
If he puts this one on a little bit more of a rope, he just sort of floated that one. If he gets that to Jenkins a second quicker, Jenkins is probably in the end zone. That one just sort of lollipopped it there and gave the defensive back enough time to come back and get to Jenkins before he got first down yardage and what likely would have been 6 points.
Yeah, if that ball was out in front of Jenkins, he's able to turn the corner and take that one to the house. I do concur. Vince. Talked about Penn Hills, Vince. That's a team that got that big win on the road at Pine Richland, a team that's now battling for 2nd place in their conference. But they're just such a very good football team, are the Pine Richland Rams.
They are. And that game's probably going to come back to haunt them. Next week, the game of the week likely will be Woodland Hills, Penn Hills, and that big ultimate matchup. Certainly a few other games still need to shake themselves out across 5A. Penn Trafford and Franklin Regional will be really entertaining next week. But if Penn Hills can take care of business, they were up 2 scores on Shaler tonight, and if they can take care of Woodland Hills next week, they put themselves in the driver's seat to also be unblemished conference champions.
Tavares, the ball carrier, brought down near the line of scrimmage by Donovan Biggs. 3rd and 3 for the Knights. Ball at the 17. Clock winding, latter stages of quarter number 3 here at Norwin Knights Stadium. Pass incomplete, intended for Pons, far side, incomplete, like I say, and that brings up 4th down and punt unit for Norwin.
Yeah, missed everything on that one, and luckily for the Gators, who turned it over on downs in their own red zone, able to force that 3 and out, get that offense back onto the field, continue to hopefully run the ball and use that short passing game to keep this clock moving.
Drastic difference between this week and last. Wow, what a terrific job by Pfeiffer to just reach up and keep that one from sailing over his head and going into the end zone for a safety. But he doesn't have time to make anything happen with it, and Pfeiffer is brought down by S.J. Moorfield at around the 11-yard line. So ultimately, a turnover on downs for the Knights gives the Gators the ball 1 yard back from where they gave it up.
Yeah, an incredible effort. That's been sort of building up all night. We've seen the punter have to go up a few times and make an acrobatic catch. That time, it just snapped a little too far above Pfeiffer's head. And once again, if there's any offense in 5A you don't want to give the ball to 1st and 10 at the 11-yard line, it's the Gateway Gators, and see if they can rectify what went wrong. Like I said, they were just a little touch on that last pass away from getting to pay dirt. See if they can tune things up, get a score here.
Hand off, Reynolds spun down after a gain of about 1. Tackled by Josh Leonard.
Yeah, nothing much happening there, but I like the commitment to the run game more often than not. The holes have been there. Reynolds has looked real sharp tonight, and what from a simply rushing perspective might be one of his 2 or 3 best performances running the ball thus far in this game all season. Not to mention those 3 big catches, the one of which he took 51 yards to the end zone.
Good news for Gators fans. Jacob Santo returning to the lineup at left guard. Toss complete. Touchdown Gateway. Just a beauty. Right into the outstretched arms of Kenny Lewis.
That play's been there for much of this season, and I love that they don't overthink it. That simple slant route. They have so many talented weapons on offense. Just get a quick step inside, get that ball out in front of the receiver. It's so hard to stop. So there, they just keep it simple. 2 plays, points on the board, another PAT upcoming.
PAT by Blake Marsh splits the uprights. And Gateway stretches their lead to 41-14. Palindromic lead for the Gateway Gators.
Now you look at it, 3 passing touchdowns for Birch, 3 total touchdowns for Lewis. This is another contest where Jaquan Reynolds has multiple touchdowns. We talk about a guy with 14 touchdowns, all of which have come over the past half a dozen games. Really, this offense is getting to a place late in this season with Lewis, with Jenkins, with Birch, with Reynolds, where they feel like they're peaking at the right time. I think it's actually going to be really interesting to see how they perform against what a lot of people think is nailed on the best team in Western Pennsylvania next week against Central Catholic. I bet you the Gators are able to put some points up even in that game. They just have so many guys at so many places across the field that you want to try to take someone away, they're going to find another way to get the ball into someone's hands.
Just hope it doesn't end up being a glorified scrimmage like it was at Dormont Stadium a year ago. It started out like a decent football game, and by the time we got to halftime, it was not much of a competition, and not because either team was putting it on the other. It was just because neither team had much interest in what was happening that particular evening. As this kickoff by Marsh bounces around and is finally covered up by Jackson Huss.
I mean, let's be candid, Adam. These are 2 teams that have championship aspirations. You know, after the Gators started the season 0-3, they're 4-1 in their past 5 games, and that lone loss last week against McKeesport was a game where the Gators came away doing a lot of things well and felt like they could have won against a quality opponent. And same for Central Catholic. They've run through much of their schedule like a hot knife through butter, and their only loss came out of their classification to a talented Pine Richland team that just was able to possess the ball and play keep away and keep that talented offense off the field. So point is, both these teams have championship aspirations. They don't want to get anyone hurt next week.
Yeah, the Rams tailback in that game against Central Catholic, 50-plus carries.
56. There was a lot of chatter, folks around Western Pennsylvania. Is that ethical? Is that fair to the young man? He had a great response. He said, I signed up to play football, and that's what I'm doing.
Clock winding, 1:25 to play here in quarter 3. Tavares tossing it down that far side. Leaping up, pulling it in is Luke Denny. He has been the brightest star today for the Norwin Knights.
Yeah, nice adjustment, nice catch. A shame that the defensive back there, Carlos Diggs, just lost his footing there. You see he sort of falls to the turf, and then Denny able to go up and high point that one. And luckily, that catch up in space took him to the turf, so not off to the races afterward, but Diggs did everything right there, was in lockstep until that last minute and just sort of lost his footing.
Tavares looking left, now looking back right. Tossing. Looking for Denny. Some contact. I think a flag did come in. And if the flag did come in, it's rightfully so because there was contact while the ball was in the air right around the 20-yard line.
And that is where that flag is sitting, sort of blends in. It's a little dark up here.
Holding. Defense, number 13. 10-yard penalty. Result, first down.
Sometimes that's the benefit of taking a deep shot to a guy who's been real tough to cover all night. As you see, Diggs gets beat there and just sticks that arm out at the last moment, tries to get a hold of Denny. And that was enough to elicit that flag, and right, like you said, rightfully so, Adam. And so that just moves the ball forward a little bit more for the Norwin Knights, who, if they can get some points on the board before the end of the quarter, pull it back within a 3-score game with 12 minutes left.
Tavares, straight drop back, pressured, eludes the first man but can't get past the second as he's wrapped and sacked by Craig Schultz.
He's so giddy down there. Didn't know if he'd be back this week after that scare last week. You see how excited he is. Both hands stretched out up in the air right now. A 2-sack performance and counting tonight for the big fella on the defensive line. As you see, just pressure all night from all different directions for Tavares. It's a wonder he's been able to be as productive as he has. He's certainly quite the athlete, but he has had pressure just about every time he's dropped back to pass.
Tavares looks back to the right. It's caught by Denny, but he is brought down in the backfield. The Gators were all over that one. Jenkins, the first Gator there, but he wasn't alone, as Kane and Bandy, amongst others, was also there.
Hey, take a look, a number of guys just flying in there. They read that one perfectly and were chomping at the bit to lay the boom there. And the third quarter went pretty quick. Gators that much closer to 5-0.
Well, Vince, I've seen you in your phone and I've seen you writing things down. Does that mean we've got some scores around the WPIAL?
We do, and I'll keep trying to search throughout the contest. Some of these are halftime scores, some of them a little more updated than others. Peters Township is in a bit of a battle tonight. 5A, 6A game with Cannon McMillan. That one not of super consequence. The games that are of consequence, as we talked about, 21-0. Pine Richland, Woodland Hills able to cut the bleeding a little bit and at least keep Pine Richland off the board in that third quarter, but they're 12 minutes away from a big win in the Northeast Conference. Penn Trafford was down 6 points to North Allegheny, another out-of-conference game. Penn Hills up 14-0 on Shaler. Moon and Upper St. Clair went into the half tied at 14. We said Bethel Park up 21-9 on South Fayette, and then a 5A game, but out-of-conference game, North Hills leading Franklin Regional 16-14. And while that game might not seem like it matters much on paper, Adam, that is a wild card implication game. These teams like Franklin Regional, let's say they turn up on the wrong side of the game against Penn Trafford next week. Those resumes that they're able to put together outside of conference are going to go a long way for the selection committee.
Tavares pressured. Eludes it initially as a flag comes in, and now Mark Knight gets the sack. No gloves, no wrist tape, short socks. Old school football in the sack for Mark Knight.
You don't need any of those things. You might help, but Mark Knight, no frills about it, just pure athleticism, and what great tenacity there. Is unable to get Tavares the first time around, keeps with it, gets back on his high horse, turns on the jets, and is able to bring down the signal caller. Despite the holding call against the Gators, they'll force a fourth and real long. Obviously,
Gateway decided to decline that penalty. accept the result of the play and the down, which brings up this 4th down. Time initially for Tavares as he's flushed to the right, steps up, tosses deep, high pointing the football. It's intercepted. Kenny Lewis sidesteps Denny as he runs to that far boundary, picking up blockers. Still on his feet to the 40. And now he will step to the boundary at around the 45-yard line.
Those guys that are so adept at catching Brad Birch's long touchdown passes on one end of the field are often the guys lining up in the secondary with equally as good hands to take it away from opposing quarterbacks. That's Tavares' 2nd interception in the second half here. Both have been daggers that have helped the Gators put up points in the second half, and in this instance, Lewis put a lot of effort in there, basically got the ball back to where the Gators would get it if it would have been a turnover or downs, if he would have batted it down, but it's more fun to intercept the ball and run it back good ways.
Undoubtedly, especially when he had an opportunity there, and a reasonable opportunity to get his 3rd touchdown of the game the 3rd different way.
Yeah, boy, would that have been quite the hat trick.
Low snap, gathered in, pitch to Reynolds. Off the mark, and Reynolds has to cover it up. Big loss for the Gators.
Lewis had that big fumble return touchdown against Franklin Regional earlier this season that really turned the tide. And you talk about no shortage of star power on this team, but Kenny Lewis might be the one guy that has made an impact in all 3 facets of the game in a real impactful way. It's hard not to argue that Brad Birch would be, in a lot of ways, the MVP of this team, but Lewis stakes his own claim, that's for sure.
Pitch to Reynolds, able to keep his feet out across the 40 to around the 41-yard line. Tackled by Jackson Huss. That brings up 3rd down and about 13 for the Gators.
See if they decide to take a shot here on 3rd and long. Certainly Birch has done a good job taking care of the football tonight, but he also just wouldn't feel bad about running the ball here and continuing to bleed this clock. You've got a nice cushion in this one.
Birch looking for Lewis. And Birch and Lewis not on the same page. That pass too strong, and that brings up 4th and Bakers dozen. The offense will stay on regardless of whether the Gators are punting or not in this circumstance.
I think this will probably be a pooch punt opportunity, but we've seen the thing that this does that has helped the Gators in terms of field position is by keeping the offense out and Brad Birch still pooch punting it, it prevents a return team from coming on for Franklin Regional or a return man going back. So that ball, how many yards has Birch gotten on punts where he's just continued to let that ball roll?
Instead, the Gators are going to go for the home run ball as Birch was looking for Kenny Lewis in one-on-one coverage. And it was just one step too long for Kenny Lewis for what could have been another touchdown for the Gators junior receiver.
Yeah, they had it set up there. Even with the low snap, Birch able to uncork this one, and just a little too much on it is obviously open Kenny Lewis, and you had a step there, more than a step on the defensive back, but now it creates a short field for the Norwin Knights, who are a team that has made their bread and butter in these second halves by putting up a lot of points in the 4th quarter. We'll see if they have one more comeback attempt left in them.
All Knights points tonight scored in the 1st quarter. And both touchdowns were scored by Luke Denny, one on a kick return for a TD, the other one on a reception, where he muscled his way past the Gateway Gators. This pass is intended for Pons, and Pons is hit hard by S.J. Moorfield, drawing the ball loose, and that brings up 2nd and 10.
Yeah, quite a wallop there and a good heads-up play. Moorfield able to play the ball there, equal opportunity, trying to go and get that one, try to get the interception. And yeah, Adam, you talked about since it was 14-13 Norwin, they put that drive together. 28 unanswered points by the Gators. They have really taken control of this one.
And a flag comes in. The Gators were offsides. That'll push Gateway back 5 yards. And
defense number 3. 5-yard penalty. Still
penalty goes against Gateway's Stephen Jenkins. Touched on S.J. Moorfield on the previous defensive play last week. One scoop and score that counted, and one that was taken away and ended up taking the wind out of the sails of the Gateway Gators. in the process as McKeesport ended up going on a 97-yard touchdown drive. As this long pass to the end zone is pulled in by Jackson Pawns. Back in one-on-one coverage with Jair Phillips. And the Knights can cut this down to 20 or less with a PAT or a two-pointer.
Yeah, you go for it in your own territory up by a bunch, give it back to the Knights with an offense that can strike like that, and they put 6 on the board. With still a lot of time left in this one. You still feel good about where you're at if you're the Gators. But continues to be one of those things where can you continue to run the ball consistently here in the fourth quarter to try and play keep away enough to where you just simply don't give the Knights enough chances to get the ball back, to get back into this one.
So the Knights are going to go for 2 from the left hash. Tavares rolls right, throws out of the back of the end zone, incomplete.
Yeah, no one there, so it almost looked like he threw it away at the end of that one. I mean, just airmailed the heck out of it. Nothing going. Good coverage by Lewis in the back of the end zone there.
So some great games of consequence as the season ends, and some games that are reasonably meaningless, or games even in conference that don't mean a whole heck of a lot in the scheme of things. You know, this game included, as far as the way history goes, with the Norwin history versus the Gateway Gators, and you know, a perennial contender for a conference title, shared a conference crown a year ago, well on their way to a undisputed conference title this season. But Woodland Hills and Pine Richland tonight, the outlier in 5A. And next week, Woodland Hills, Penn Hills, Franklin Regional, Penn Trafford. Those are the games that aren't outliers.
Yeah, those will be, and those will be de facto playoff games, almost in their own right, whether it comes for seeding, who gets a home game, who doesn't. And I think both Big East teams will have a good shot at getting in, but that's not guaranteed. So that Franklin Regional Penn Trafford game could be a playoff game.
Short kick, pooched, caught by Carlos Diggs, and Diggs out across the 45 to the 46-yard line, where he's stacked up and brought down, and the Gator is slow to get up.
Official timeout, injury.
And that's Diggs, who is the Gator slow to get to his feet, being tended to by Gators coaches and soon to be the athletic trainer as well.
Hopefully just the wind knocked out of him for a minute, or a cramp. Diggs has been excellent on special teams and defense tonight. Luckily he's able to get himself up under his own power.
Earlier tonight we looked at that Allegheny 6 conference, and you saw that Upper St. Clair currently outside of playoff position in that conference, and they could finish the season, you know, with 7 or 8 wins and still not make the playoffs.
Well, and Adam, a part of that is, as we've talked about, is these non-conference schedules have not been created equal this year. And you look at, you know, we talked about Franklin Regional, another team that has just 2 losses, but they've made their hay playing the Connellsvilles and the Latrobes of the world in 4A. The 4A team that the Gators drew was McKeesport, a little different caliber.
Yeah, the number 2 team across the board in 4A is Birch, dancing, and somehow picks up the first down. He got to the first down marker, retreated, danced around, and then picks up the first down.
Yeah, not quite like the 50-yard run that was a 30-yard run against Franklin Regional, where I think he ran past the marker twice, back behind it twice, and then forward a third time for a few extra yards. But that's been a fun wrinkle in his game. But yeah, I mean, the case in point on that last conversation is the Gators have had some real tough tests in the non-conference. They'll have another one next week.
Birch unloads. Gateway touchdown. Stephen Jenkins.
Well, Norwin got those points on the board less than a minute ago, and the Gators made no doubt about it. Some tempers flaring over, and it's probably what that laundry down there is going to be about.
Well, a defensive lineman for the Norwin Knights got in the face of Brad Birch. Then a shove from Pham to Birch, and then rightfully so, I like to see it, Roberson Louis June, the Gators center, comes back in the defense of his QB. And as a former offensive lineman playing both center and guard, that's right up my alley.
Yeah, you got to take care of your quarterback. Can't back down in those kind of moments. And luckily, cooler heads prevail. Just a couple shoves here and there. We'll sort out and see what that looks like on likely the kickoff after the upcoming PAT. But this Gators team's got a bit of swagger in it. After that rough start to the season, there's a body language and a swagger to this team that I think a lot of people really like. But if you're the Norwin Knights right now, you probably don't like that so much.
Beautiful pass parenthetically from Birch to Jenkins. Got behind the defense, hauled it in, and crossed the goal line. As Birch inching ever closer to 100 career touchdown passes. Referee going to go over, talk to Don Hall. Iron this out, turn on his mic a little bit early.
Yeah, 4 touchdown passes for Birch tonight. Takes him up to 97. So inching closer, a fun little storyline as we put a bookend on this season. Will he get another one tonight? Will he set himself up with a chance to get it next week? Or could that 100th come at a crucial moment in a postseason game?
I want to thank Mike Burrell, the athletic director here at Norman, setting us up with great accommodations. Always good when we travel on the road and are able to get set up with a window seat, ability to get our director a good spot in the press box, and of course our cameras in the right places.
Yeah, great hospitality from all the folks at Norwin and their athletic department up here tonight. Super appreciative for sure.
Now the referee, after talking to Don Hall, is going to come over and talk to Mike Brown, the head coach of the Norwin Knights. And eventually we'll hear from our referee, and now we will.
After the play is over, unsportsmanlike conduct, offense number 12. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, 51, defense. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, 51, offense. The personal fouls are going to offset. The unsportsmanlike foul will be enforced on the kickoff. That's number 12's first unsportsmanlike.
Well, the referee was right there, and I'm sure he had a good ear on what Brad Birch had to say to Aiden Pham before Pham pushed Birch, and then Herberson Louis June came in and told Pham a thing or two as that PAT is up and in. As Blake Morris stretches the Gateway lead to 48-20. We get another look at this beautiful touchdown pass from Birch to Stephen Jenkins.
And again, you got Birch with over almost a $150 just in touchdown passes tonight, following up that 414-yard passing performance. Somehow, I believe his first as a Gator. Only the second Gator quarterback to do it. Brady Walker had done it 3 times previously for Gateway. Birch passing that 400-yard mark, and even arguably more impressive tonight in a winning performance with 4 touchdowns and spreading the wealth around between Jenkins, 2 to Lewis, and 1 to Reynolds. And it just makes you continue to think as they get closer to the postseason, you'd be excited at a potential rematch with a team like Woodland Hills to just see as a litmus test with all of your weapons and everything firing at all cylinders. And that was a game that the Gators hung in defensively till the end, but just couldn't get anything going offensively, falling 27-0. Tend to think that'd be a different script this time around. You don't know exactly what would happen, and I'm certainly not going to discount some of the other teams in 5A and the talent they have, but hard to find an offense that is just putting it together the way that the Gators are right now.
Marsh, bouncing kick. Bounces into the hands of return man for the Knights. Crease for a moment. But then John Bailey will be brought down right near the midfield stripe by Tristan Houston.
Good field position once again for the Knights, who were able to turn that into points on the long touch pass touchdown on the last drive, 37 yards from Tavares to Pons. We'll see if he looks his way again or if he tries to dial up something to get into Luke Denny's hands, who's been by far the brightest spot for this offense tonight for the Knights.
High snap, Tavares looking right, has time, now pressured by Knight, eludes that pressure, but he won't get past the freshman, Jackson Smith.
Smith doing a somersault, went up high on Tavares, was able to wrap him up around the shoulders, takes him to the turf, and you take another look. Mark Knight just a little too overzealous there, and then Smith able to wrap him up, and whoop, legs just go end over top. And talk to, there's a few underclassmen on this Gators team that are paying dividends right now, and it just makes you excited about what's in store for the future.
Tavares looking left, back right as he's pressured late by Knight. And Kenny Lewis tossing down the receiver Jackson Pons after Pons got back to 1 yard shy of the original line of scrimmage, which was the 50.
A quick pitch and catch across the middle. And in a lot of other games, these Knights receivers have probably been able to shake guys and get down the field, but not tonight. Sure tackling from this defensive backfield. Very few missed tackles overall.
Tavares thought about going right, brought it back down, and then tosses it incomplete over the head of Jackson Pons, who had flashed open.
He's had a few that he's just missed on tonight. That 2-point conversion pass where there wasn't a whole lot going on, but sort of just airmailed that one out of the back of the end zone. Has had a few down the field that have sailed on him a little bit. And that's been one of the big differences in the game. Birch has been like a surgeon, just precision out on the field, especially with that deep ball. Had a couple drops that could have turned into touchdowns. On the other end, Tavares, just a few misses in this one.
Snap to the left of Tavares, but he gathers it in, pressured, steps up into the pocket, and now he'll be caught from behind and brought down by Craig Schultz, who's having a big game at the defensive end spot.
Third sack on the evening. Just so happy to see that guy playing as well as he is tonight. You have to wonder, after seeing your season sort of flash before your eyes, to get that second lease on life and be able to come out here tonight. Has to really motivate a guy like him. And a good job there grabbing the number on the back of the jersey and not grabbing that horse collar. Bringing up that turnover on downs, getting that offense back out on the field for the Gators.
Talked about games that aren't very consequential here in the latter portions of the season. One of them, the Cannon Mac Big Macs at the Peters Township Indians. And, you know, that's a rivalry game, two teams in the northern portion of Washington County. But Cannon Mac, the 6A team, right now in a war with the 5A top-seeded team, the Peters Township Indians. As we take a look at the conference we haven't looked at yet, the Northeast Conference in WPIAL 5A. Penn Hills atop that conference with a record of 3-0. Pine Richland with one loss coming to Penn Hills, but the Rams on their way to defeating the Woodland Hills Wolverines as they're up 21-0 in the fourth quarter at last check. North Hills 2-2, Shaler winless, so are the Fox Chapel Foxes.
This is another conference where you look like there might be a strong chance to get 3 teams in, but if you're the Woodland Hills Wolverines, life could come at you real fast. You could go from 6-2 to 6-4 quick in this conference and find yourself where Penn Hills did on sort of that 9th seed on the outside looking in.
Jackson Smith now in the game at quarterback, the freshman who has moved into the starting linebacker spot with the absence of Ahmad Harris. And now he's the first QB off the bench tonight for Gateway.
Yeah, and had a rushing touchdown early this season in second team action. Chance to see potentially what the future of this program might look like, because as we know, Brad Birch will not be here next year. He will be playing football, but just not for the Gateway Gators. So Jackson Smith getting the first crack at potentially being the succession plan.
Yeah, we saw Sid Bryant get the 2 starts earlier in the season. As this ball bounced to the right side by T.J. Mitchell, and he is brought down inside of Knights territory. They'll say he gets to around the 43.
I suppose that's fair. It feels like a lifetime ago. Sid Bryan did get that first crack and had a 172-yard passing performance against Woodland Hills and had some stretches where he really looked solid. So there's some depth there at quarterback next year for the Gators.
Low snap, scooped up by Smith as Mitchell runs left. As Leonard makes the tackle for Norwin. The Gators have cleared their bench and have their second-team offense on the field. Hodgepodge of starters and second-teamers out there right now for Norwin, though.
Can let the folks know at home that Pine Richland has finished off the Woodland Hills Wolverines 28-0 the final in that one. Ethan Pillard, 141 yards on just 34 carries tonight. 22 less than a few weeks ago.
Just got an update in the Peters Township Cannon Mac game as well, 17-10 the final, or late in the fourth quarter, as Peters Township scores on a 55-yard touchdown pass. Pitch to Mitchell. Ball still loose. An opportunity for a scoop and score for the Knights, but does Gateway end up getting it back? Now, I don't think Norwin ever got possession of the ball. And there's also a flag 5 yards deep in the backfield. So Norwin ended up getting the ball, but we're going to have to iron out what happened with the flag as well.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. We're looking at the ball, and there's bodies flying every which way. If you're Mitchell, you just sort of got to dive on that one. It looks like it's going to be a sideline warning on the Gators. So no real penalty of consequence yardage-wise, just a sideline warning for the Gators. But that one kicked around a little bit. Knights will get a crack at a short field here.
Updating that baseball score for baseball fans. Bottom of the board, Arizona 2, Philadelphia 1.
5:10 to play here in the fourth quarter. Gateway on top of Norwin, 48-20.
37-yard line.
Gators well on their way to an undefeated 5-0 conference record. Outright conference crown. And another year added to the banner in the gym at the Henry Fury Complex.
Yeah, fun to be around one of those programs here in Western Pennsylvania that just year in, year out, you know is going to have the talent and the coaching and the infrastructure and the culture to be one of those teams at the end of the season. 2 titles over the past 10 years, 17 and 19. It seems like every year the Gators are the consensus #1 overall pick in 5A, and I know they're chomping at the bit to get back to that. And that's really the one thing that's missing at Gateway from Brad Birch's resume is a signature playoff win and a real deep playoff run. And this 5A field this year, there's some tough teams out there with Pine Richland and Peters Township, but the opportunity is there. I mean, there's been some top-heavy talent with guys like Derek Davis and Patrick Bodie over the last several years, but this season, I don't think I've seen a Gators offense that across the field with the weaponry they have, just so many guys, receivers 1 through 4, talents in the backfield, and a line that's gotten better and better over the season, and fingers crossed has stayed relatively healthy.
Norwin starting to clear their bench on the offensive side as Potter Rozeski is the QB for the Knights. Here on 2nd down and 10 with just over 5 minutes to play. Ball comes loose, and they'll say an incomplete forward pass. As I guess it was a forward pitch as we take a look at this way. Absolutely. Good call. Way to be on the spot by the officials there. It was an intended forward pass headed to the motion man coming from right to left. Toss in the near side right is incomplete by Brozeski as he was looking for Povarnik. Coverage job by T.J. Mitchell for the Gators.
Yeah, nice job by Mitchell getting that hand in there without contacting the receiver and drawing a penalty. Just able to get that hand out in front and jar it loose from the receiver's hands.
Patting the ball several times. Brozeski tosses it down that far side. Incomplete. Flag down. So we'll check in with our referee.
Holding. Offense. Penalties decline. Result of the play is a turnover on downs.
So turnover on downs for the Knights gives the ball back to the Gators as the pace of this game has ground to a halt here in the mid stages of the fourth quarter.
This one done and dusted for the most part, and so Don Hall and company leading the charge and wisely getting a lot of the big names out of the contest and keeping them preserved and healthy going into next week. And Mike Brown and company doing the same, waving the white flag out of respect and pulling the first team as well. And so now just an opportunity for some of the young guys to get some snaps here and what's effectively turned into about 5-6 minutes of the JV contest.
A lot of these guys are going to be playing tomorrow at Antamarino Stadium in the JV game as that ball goes to Terrence Cole, who has a touchdown to his credit in some mop-up time earlier this season. Nearly had a touchdown a week ago on a nifty play where he hid behind the guard, took the handoff, and raced to the 1/2 yard line. We ended up not even scoring on that drive. Option left. Jackson Smith keeps it, and he will be spun down after a gain of about 1. Tackled by Friel, 6'3" freshman.
Yeah, that is one of those games last week against McKeesport where it just felt like the Gators had every opportunity to win that game, and luckily it didn't matter toward anything super meaningful. It was a fun one to cover, that's for sure. There was a lot of emotion, a great crowd on hand at Antamarino Stadium. We talked about off the air before the game, the respect for the McKeesport fans that traveled so well to that one. It was a great atmosphere. That was a fun game.
Yeah, that's a community that really, really supports its football team as Terrence Cole takes this handoff. Well-timed race to the ball by the Norwin Knights defensive front. As the stop is made at around the 31-yard line, and the clock will continue to tick down towards 3 minutes to go here on this 4th down.
Certainly want to shout out the Gator student section, though, that's made a presence at every single game this year. They made the effort to get out here tonight despite the soggy weather and cheer this Gators team on to an outright conference championship.
And it looks like a student section of 1 right now. Understandably so. Temperatures in the low 50s and a rainy night in a 28-point football game. Gateway takes a timeout with the play clock running down and 2:40 to play on the game clock. Vince, when we look back at last week's game against the McKeesport Tigers, granted we say it's a meaningless game, but a victory in that game could have gone a long way to Gateway ensuring that they get the number 3 seed heading into the playoffs. Right now there's probably a question of that as we head to the playoff seeding 2 weeks hence.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Pine Richland taking on North Hills next week. You know, let's say that Penn Hills takes care of business against Woodland Hills. You've got a 5-0 and a 4-1 team there, especially Pine Richland hasn't lost. They have that signature win over Central Catholic. You start to have a tough case. Peters Township, if they remain unblemished, would unanimously be the one. It'd be hard to argue that, but then it comes down to Gateway or Pine Richland for that 3 or 4 seed. And, you know, with that win over Central Catholic, it'd be hard-pressed maybe not to give that to the Rams.
This one will take a bounce and will be covered up by Gateway. Jackson Smith punts that one, and it is covered by Julian Dancier. And in that circumstance, Vince, when we look at going into the playoffs with potentially seeing Pine Richland as the 4 seed, that lines them up with Peters Township in the semifinals if everybody holds chalk. And that would certainly be an interesting matchup, as they would be the hottest team heading into the playoffs in the Pine Richland Rams, taking on the top team in 5A in the Peters Township Indians.
Hey, if you're Peters Township, you hope that doesn't happen. Although I don't know how excited they'd be to take on the Gators at the same time with the way they've been scoring the ball. 5A still, even though it's a different 5A this year, there's still some real intrigue in how that bracket's going to look.
By the way, the ball had hit off of a Norwin player on that punt by Jackson Smith, and that's why it was so quickly covered up by Dan Sear, giving the ball back to Gateway as the Gateway offense is out there. And it was Terrence Cole again running with it for the Gators.
Yeah, a chance to just run a few plays here and try to pick up that first down to keep this clock rolling, to put that game away as the Gators allowing this play clock to continue to roll and roll and roll.
Hand off this time, TJ Mitchell up the gut, Gateway first down inside of the 30.
So much parity, it's going to be tough to figure out whether the Gators are the 3 or the 4 seed. There's a number of teams. Let's say Woodland Hills knocks off Penn Hills next week. That takes them from potentially being a 6 seed to maybe being a 5 as well, or it would force a log jam. Another situation like last year, you have 3 teams that tie for the section title, but maybe only 2 of them get in. It'll be an interesting week next week.
With that first down by TJ Mitchell, the Gators are in position here to kneel the ball down 2 times and head out of Norwin Knights Stadium with a 48-20 victory. And the Gators will finish off conference play 5-0 within the Big East.
And that prospect of going 5-0 in your conference and 0-5 out of conference still remains a distinct possibility, which I still believe there can't be too many teams that have done that before. But I'm looking forward to the game next week. It'll be fun to be with Spencer Witt and to be back at Antimarino Stadium for at least one more. I think we might get a second, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would think that the Gators will host in round number 1, the WPIAL quarterfinals, a couple of weeks from now. And in all likelihood, we will have the call of that one on the NFHS network. So we have 20 seconds officially left in this one, but the handshakes are already underway as the Gateway Gators get a 48-20 victory over the Norwin Knights.
And, after that quick punch to the gut, that quick kick return touchdown by Luke Denny, you wondered, could this be a trap game? The Gators then came out offensively, looked a little disheveled. Norwin then capitalizes, goes up 14-13. You think, we might have a game here. And then for the rest of the way, it's all Gators. Brad Birch, 5 total touchdowns tonight. Lewis, 3 touchdowns. Reynolds, 2 touchdowns. I mean, the stars all shone brightly in the moment they needed to the most to get them across that threshold, to get that undisputed 5-0 unblemished record and a conference title.
And the Gateway defense showed what they can do yet again. A team that at times bends but really never breaks.
It's the best pressure they've gotten all season in the backfield. That's a talented quarterback and a talented receiving core that they went up against tonight, and certainly they had their moments. The 37 touchdown connection to Pons, the pass across the middle that Denny was able to make a few men miss and score that touchdown. But by and large, they did not have a lot of time to throw the football tonight.
Talked about it already. Next week, the Gateway Gators will wrap up the regular season interclassification matchup against the Central Catholic Vikings, a team that a lot of people think is the best team in the western part of Pennsylvania.
It'll be a good litmus test. I mean, it'll be interesting to see again, candidly, how do those 2 teams approach it? And hard to argue whichever way they decide to do it. Do you go full gas to try and keep yourself in that momentum going into the postseason, or do you try to maybe call it off just a little bit and both teams sort of go Cold War with it and understand that the bigger picture really lies the next week ahead?
Early in the season, I would have been very surprised if you told me that the Gateway Gators were going to be the undefeated, undisputed champions of the Big East Conference. But here we are, as the Gateway Gators are now 5-4 on the season and a perfect 5-0 and take home the conference title.
Yeah, I mean, the tenacity and the resilience this team has showed has to be commendable, and all that starts at the top with head coach Don Hall and his staff that he's put around him. And these guys, led by Brad Birch and, that group of seniors that have kept this team together through all of that. And they talked about being on the wrong end of some tough games. Mount Lebanon was a tough test in week 0, very big, and that line had to grow for the Gators and struggled early in the season. And I think everyone's taken a big step forward, but getting Birch back after missing 2 games, and the way he's looked this season has been such a catalyst for this team. And Steve Jenkins has been on both sides of the ball, so big, so physical, and you can tell he's one of those guys that I think is not only going to play at the next level, but really do well at the next level.
48-20 your final scores. The Gateway Gators defeat the Norwin Knights to finish off the conference season 5-0. Next week, the Gators will host Central Catholic to wrap up the regular season before we head to the playoffs. That'll do it for our coverage this evening. For our entire crew and my broadcast partner, Vince Russo, I'm Adam Gusky. Thanking you for joining us here on GatewayGatorProductions.com.